Hi, this is Mike Hibbert back again with another Python Django tutorial for you. And this time we're going to cover a little bit about authentication and using the users part of Django. Now, Django comes with a built-in user management system that helps you to deal with logins and registrations and logging out, and various different groups and properties and permissions that users can have in your website. Now, this comes to be very useful when you start building websites where you can put in restricted areas, or if you want to have people use the site but then record various things that they do on the site. For instance, like on a social network, you want to record who clicked like on a particular article or something like that. Then that'll turn out to be very valuable to you to have that sort of capability. Now, the first thing that we do normally is we go to the settings files and make sure that certain things are available if need be, and this is no exception. The user authentication system is contained in a package called django.contrib.auth, and we need to make sure that this is actually enabled in our installed apps section. If it is already installed, then just leave it as it is, and if it's not there, then you need to type it in and put that in the list, or uncomment it if it's commented. The next section that we also need to look at is the middleware classes section, because we also have some modules to pull in that will help us to deal with the authentication system, and that's django.contrib.auth.middleware.authentication middleware, and that helps us to deal with the actual process of storing things in the back end. So last time we did our tutorial, we discussed cookies and sessions, and this middleware is the system that actually uses that capability. So in learning how we did that last time, we've actually come to understand more or less how the authentication system works here. So with that done inside of our settings.py file, we don't need to do anything more than that. The next thing we need to do is to make our website aware of where we can go in terms of URLs for this authentication system. Now, this URLs file that I'm dealing with here is the URLs file you'll find inside of the Django test module if you followed along with the series. It's not the URLs one that you will find inside of the articles app. It's inside of our Django test. So this is the main site-wide version, as opposed to the one that's only specific to this particular module that we've been building for articles. So this one, the one that's site-wide, we're going to put it into there because authentication URLs aren't really part of a package as such. Not that you couldn't make them into that, but in this case I'm making them specific to this website. So we add in the URLs, and here we have accounts login, which passes through to our Django test module folder, goes into the views file and looks for a method called login. Same here, we have an auth URL that will map through to an auth_view method. And notice I've used an underscore there because auth is kind of a restricted word when it comes to the actual names of methods and that sort of thing, so it's not a good idea to name your method auth because it will clash with modules and that sort of thing. So that's why I've put that underscore view there. You might like to make it a practice of making underscore view on the end of every view method name you have. It's up to you. It's really a matter of preference. And then we have logout, logged in, and invalid. So the logged in and invalid URLs will just basically pass us through to a page saying you're now logged in, or your password or username wasn't valid, please try again, that sort of thing. So there's 5 new URLs that we've set up. So we need 5 new methods to deal with that. Inside of our Django test folder, we have a new file, the views file. Now we do have a views file in the articles folder, which we were using in the previous examples, but we're going to make these site-wide views, so these should be available just in this site, and unless you want to package it up and use it in a different site, it's going to stay right here and be specific to this particular website that we're building. So in that views file, we're going to add some stuff in to help us to make our new login and logout and the other responder URLs. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull in our old friend, the render to response method, which basically allows us to render a template back to the browser. Then we're going to pull in a new module that we haven't seen before, the Django.http HTTP response redirect object, and this basically allows us to redirect the browser to a different URL. It's very simple to use, and as you'll see in a minute, it's an absolute doddle to set it up and know how to work with it. The next bit we want to do is now pull in our auth object from Django contrib, and that'll take care of checking our username and passwords and actually confirming that the user's logged in, or alternatively logging out. So here we go. The next and final module that we're going to pull in is an unexpected one, because it's Django core context processors, and the object we're going to pull in is CSRF. If you know a little bit about web security, then you'll know CSRF stands for cross-site request forgery, which is basically a method for people who are a bit dodgy to try and hack into your website or to cause your website to do unexpected things by pretending that some submitted form that they've generated is from your site. And the way that you stop that from happening is to use CSRF module to embed a special code or token into your forms that only your website can confirm or correct, and then you can kind of sidestep the issue of people trying to forge requests to your site. If you want to know more about that, a good place to start is Google, and go and type in what that is, and it'll give you the whole 9 yards about what it's all about. But for the sake of our tutorial, I'm not going to take it any further than that, other than to show you what to actually do with the token that's generated in your form. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the login URL, or login view method. We're going to create a dict called C, and we're going to push into it a CSRF object, and then pass it through to our login HTML template. I'm going to pass that through as an argument to there. The reason for that, if I take you over to the login HTML file to show you what the contents of that is, we're going to use that to embed this CSRF underscore token, which basically equates to being a hidden form field with a string in it, and the string is a unique URL, or string rather. So this is what will be checked when we post back to the URL, and it will be confirmed as being valid or invalid to protect our site from being abused. So as you can see, the rest of this template is just basically extending the base HTML that we did in our templating tutorial. We're defining a content block through here, and everything inside is just basically us dealing with what the form should do. A little bit to say that the username and password was invalid. To be fair, that's not going to get used, so we'll just ignore that for the time being.
The main points are that we have our form declared, and we're saying that the action is actually to post through to the auth URL using the post method the token, the username and the password. So we've set up our security mechanism, and then we've got a form that just basically collects the username and password and passes it through to our auth URL. Going back to our views file, we'll look at what the auth URL does. Our auth view, first of all, goes into the request and looks for the post information from the form and gets a username and a password. Notice on the end here we've got an empty string. Now what that means is, if we're looking into the post dictionary and we don't get a value out for the username because it doesn't exist yet, then we'll have an empty string returned into our variable, and at least that won't break our script, and it will allow our authentication methods to still work, although they'll come back as invalid password or whatever. It's just a nice way of saying, if you can't find a value, at least return something. So that's what that end part means. The next section is our main check. So we're going to say use the auth object that we imported earlier, use its authenticate method. We're going to pass over the username and password into there. It will go away and check that, and if it finds a match, it will return to us a user object. If it doesn't find a match, it will return to us none. So it will say there are none found. So from that, once we've done that check, we can then deal with it. So we're going to say if the user is not none, so we found one, use the auth object and actually set the login status of our user to logged in. So notice we did an authenticate there, but that didn't actually say yes, this user is now logged in. It just said yes, this user exists within the system and the password that has been passed in is correct. The login method itself is the way that we actually say we want this user to be signified in our system as logged in now. Once we've done that, we use our new object HTTP response redirect, and we pass it a URL to be to be redirected to, which is logged in, and that basically just gives us the following: a little message saying hi, full name, logged in, or we could say you are logged in, you are now logged in. Okay, so, and then we just put another link there saying click here to log out, just so we can kind of bounce back and forward between the URLs and test it out. So that's what happens if we found a user. If we haven't found a user, because user came back equal to none, then we're going to redirect away to the account's invalid URL, and the invalid URL is basically just saying your login details are invalid, click here to log in again, and that's all that does. The next part of this is to basically go and set up the rest of our smaller view handlers for our URLs. So the main bulk of what goes on is actually in here. That's the most complicated part of the code. So the next few URLs, logged in, just basically renders the logged in HTML and passes through that full name variable that we then embed inside of there. And in this case, we use this new part of the system, which is called user, and it has a member variable called username. Now, if you look up request.user, you'll get all the different properties, etc. on the internet. I'll be using more different features in future tutorials, but for the sake of just introducing you to the idea of the request having a user member variable that then has various properties, and that you can use them by passing them in as variables to your views. That gives you a little bit of an idea of what's possible. There are loads more pieces of information you can pull out of there. You can even pull out the first name and second name of people, or you can have it pulled back as one full name. It's up to you. And there's other features, but if you're really interested in that, go and have a look further, or wait for some of my future tutorials where I'll show you some of the other aspects of that. Now, the next few URLs are very simple. We've got invalid login, which just basically renders the invalid login template, and then we have our logout. And in this case, we're using our auth object to just basically log out using this request, which stores our information about who's currently logged in. And then we're just basically rendering our logout HTML file. Okay, so that's pretty much all of our code done. Because we've now introduced the authentication system, we need to now update our database, because the user authentication system creates tables in your database that deal with the users to store their names and their email addresses and their passwords and all that sort of stuff. So to update first, before we actually run our server, we need to type python manage.py syncdb, and that will synchronize the database with any of the currently used and registered modules that we've got in our settings.py. So our settings.py will go to our install apps and see that we've got auth, and it'll go away, find out what auth needs in terms of data tables and that sort of thing, and it can synchronize the database. It'll probably say, yeah, it said installed 0 objects from 0 fixtures, etc., because I've already done this. In yours, you'll see a slightly different message, and if you don't, then you'll know something's wrong. And please feel free to put some comments in the box below, and we'll see if we can help you out in any way. So that's the synchronization done. The next thing we need to do is just basically run the server, and that theoretically should be okay. Famous last words. Yeah, as you can see, I've already tested it here. So let's go to the login page. So login, that's our 2 boxes, username and password. Unfortunately, my browser's already stored my password, so let's have a go at that and see that it confirms the login properly. Yeah, hi Mike, you are now logged in. Awesome. Click here to log out. You are now logged out. Awesome. Let's put the wrong password in there. Hamster. That'll do. Your login details are invalid. So it now knows that what to do in the case of me being successful with my login and unsuccessful. And we also have a nice URL to go to when we log out again. So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed that and it was helpful to you. If you did like this video, then please click the like button, and if you'd like to see more in the series, then please click the subscribe button. If you have any more ideas for other tutorials, or you'd like to ask any more questions about the one you've just watched, then please leave a comment below in the box below. And thanks for watching.